Like I mentioned before, food sensitivities are not causing their acne, they're triggering it because they are a symptom, just like acne, of poor gut health. Because when you're dealing with leaky gut and you start, throwing all these different foods in, we can easily have food sensitivities start popping up because the undigested food particles enter in the bloodstream where they're not supposed to be. And the body's like, whoa, you're not supposed to be here. We're going to throw a red flag on the play. We can't be having this. And that's where you're going to be starting to get these sensitivities. And they could be triggering worsening of your skin, of your joint pain, headaches, like so many things can be coming from food sensitivities. So if you are someone who thinks they're dealing with food sensitivities, the biggest culprits are going to be. So what do you do when healthy eating doesn't get rid of your acne? You try taking a gluten and dairy and you start trying vegan, maybe you do a carnivore, maybe you do celery juice. You try every single fad diet out there and oh my God, I still have acne. And now you feel hopeless. I know this, Cris, because I hear this exact story in my DMs probably every single day. And then when we have clients come into the Clear Skin Solution, we also hear the same story, right? Where it's like, I eat so healthy. I gave up all the things. I don't know why I still have acne. Is there any way I'm still going to clear up my skin? Absolutely there is. So let me just bust through the myth right now that just because you haven't cleared up your skin by eating healthy alone doesn't mean you're hopeless. So we're going to talk through some of the big reasons why you're still dealing with acne despite eating healthy.
Sometimes it's not about what you're not doing, but sometimes it's what you're overdoing or not doing enough in combination of. So once we get to unpeel or delayer or open the door a little bit more, isn't it nice to know that you're not stuck with acne?
Because I always like to say that, eating a healthy diet, we love anti-inflammatory nutrition as the foundation from which we build everything. Eating anti-inflammatory food as your foundation, that's not necessarily going to be the end all be all cure all for your acne, because acne is a very multifaceted, complex issue. And if just removing gluten and dairy cleared up your skin, it would be way easier. But then the issue is for those that are saying, oh, well, my acne does clear up when I don't eat those things. What happens when you add them back in? Because we have to remember there's a much deeper rooted issue going on besides just having a food intolerance. Today, we're going to break down the things that you need to consider in addition to eating healthy. So let's kind of start with, an easy one, which I'm going to let Cris do because she loves to talk about hydration.
It's overlooked, right? People are like, yes, I'm drinking, how many cups? 5 solid cups. And I'm like, and they're like, but some days it's 3. Or maybe not on the weekends. So whatever that is hydration's overlooked because one, you're drinking too much water or not drinking enough water. Both of those are going to cause the skin to produce more oil. It's going to look for that compensation route. And we don't want clogged pores. So if we can learn how to manage how to monitor our urine so that we have cellular hydration and we're not in the toilet all the day, isn't that really nice as a filtering system, using those kidneys, what they're supposed to do, so that one, we keep our nutrients, but two, we don't freak out the skin? And
I would say lack of hydration isn't going to be your core root cause of acne. It's not it just comes down to your water. The hydration really weaves into those 5 acne clearing pillars, which we talk about all the time. And we're going to be talking about them, of course, gut health, detoxification, hormonal balance, emotional well-being, and nourishing skincare. Those are the 5 pillars we need to look at. But we have to remember proper hydration goes hand in hand with basically all those pillars.
Exactly. So what can we do really quick and easy about this water then? You've heard us time and time say it. However, what I'd love for you to do is stop going on the internet where it's going to say drink at least half your weight in body ounces, because people don't love to math.
Yeah, that's true. People don't love to math. I hate mathing. I'm not good at it.
Yeah, we use it as mathing now in KSW because it has to be an adjective at this point, because you love it or you hate it. And Katie does not like it.
Nope. I failed grade. What was the longest you had to take grade math, math till grade 10 or 11? I failed it with a tutor, with going in on my lunch, with going in after school. I failed with a 46%. And I'm a straight A student, straight A's. And my math teacher, God bless her, she said, Katie, I'm going to pass you as long as you promise me to never take math again. And I said, lady, you got yourself a deal.
Imagine how much water she had to drink because of the stress of having you in the class.
Stress of me and being, she's like, I just don't want to have you again next year. Just go back to English. Go back to English.
So mathing isn't a thing. Also, there's calculations. Now, why I don't really love the whole mathing thing is because it depends on a bunch of core values. So what I like to do is if you're traveling, I don't want you to be like, oh, I'm in a warmer climate. What does that mean? How many more cups do I have to do, or ounces? If you travel to a different country and they're not using the same conversions as yourself, right? There's such a big dynamic. So even when I'm teaching, of course I give people the equation, but I say, I'm never going to test you on that. However, why don't we just look at our urine? If it is very light yellow, great. You're doing a great job. Keep going. If it's clear, okay, maybe we'll let one go by, but heck, let's not have two go by because now we're dehydrating. And, in that morning, that like orangey deep yellow, that's dehydration as well. Like that's a chronic. So get the water up, right? So why don't we start our day with a glass of water? Boom. Put it at your bedside table, put a cup if you have a pet. I have to say that because that's legit in some people's lives, little kitties, right? So start drinking it in your morning routine. You can add electrolytes. I love maybe a Himalayan salt or coconut water to really just enhance that hydration, especially if you're using reverse osmosis, because obviously that's dead water. After exercise, those electrolytes are fab-tab. It doesn't mean that we need fancy commercial products, right? And if you are going to use commercial products, please look at the other ingredients because that's where the dyes and all the other things, preservatives, are going to hang out. We're going to avoid excessive caffeine intake as a whole. Nice little switchy-woo. Alcohol, honestly, just because it dehydrates the skin. Even our matcha people. The other thing is, speaking of diuretics, consider medications, even like the spironolactone, because that can really disrupt your sodium, magnesium, and your sodium potassium balances. And we need those ratios to help the adrenals and vitality. So just look at the pharmaceuticals because that could be causing part of, say, dehydration. And the last thing, we would not do justice if we didn't talk about foods. So look for water-rich foods. We're going to look for the cucumbers, the watermelons, like celery, anything that, where you're going to see your water content, anything that grows out of the ground. Anything that grows down under the ground is going to have less water content. Nice and easy, right?
All right. You did it. Hydration. That's going to complement all these other pillars. But the big pillar that we want to talk about first and foremost is, of course, going to be our gut. The gut is such a huge connection to our skin and really every function in our body, all of the different organs. Remember, our body works together as a whole. Our organ systems don't work separately. And this is a really big reason why people are like, oh, well, I'm eating healthy, but my skin's not clearing up. Well, let's first look at digestion. Do you have enough digestive function to be breaking your food down? Do you have low enzymes? Do you have low stomach acid? These are two huge things we see with acne sufferers where they aren't able to break their food down. So if you're not breaking your food down, not only are you not absorbing all of the nutrients, and now you're becoming nutrient deficient, which your body and your skin needs to thrive and be clear, but you're also allowing your food to sit in your gut, putrefy, ferment, and provide the perfect little Mandarin buffet for all of the bad bacteria and yeast in your gut to just feast on. And now we're dealing with an overgrowth. So are we dealing with an overgrowth in our gut, whether it's a candida, it's a SIBO, different types of bacterial overgrowths? This is another huge issue where you can be eating the best diet in the world, but if you're dealing with an overgrowth of bacteria and yeast, you got to go after that. And then we need to be looking at is there a leaky gut situation happening? So leaky gut happens when your tight cell junctions that line up side by side, they start to get irritated by, pesticides, different types of foods, chemicals, medications, alcohol, stress. Your gut becomes leaky where these tight cell junctions start to pull apart and they allow for undigested food particles, bacteria and toxins that aren't supposed to be there. They enter into your bloodstream. They're not supposed to be there now. And then they travel through your body and they cause systemic inflammation, which is leading to acne. All because of these issues going on in your gut. And when we're dealing with these poor gut issues, like I said before, we can be eating this most wonderful food, but if we're not specifically eating for the imbalances in our gut, then your skin's not going to clear. So that's another really big issue. It's probably the number one issue we see, if I'm being honest.
Even if someone's taking in all this quality food, it's organic, it's gorgeous. We are like, we're jealous. We're like, can you please come live with us? Because we want to eat like that. it's not going to do any service if the body is under such, we call it like dis-ease, where it's constantly in a repair mode, because if you can't absorb it, zero is zero. So that's just a reminder for everybody, because we do have clients that put me to shame with their eating.
If they come in eating like
gorgeous,
amazing, incredible,
gorgeous.
like admirals, like you want to give them like a beautiful slow clap for it. And they're like, I don't understand. And then we start digging. It's like, okay, we actually have a candida growth going on. Okay, we actually have a histamine intolerance happening. So that's when you need to really start tailoring the healthy food that you're eating for the gut imbalances that you have. And then that's how we build these protocols where you're eating very specific foods for a specific period of time in a specific way, where you're like phasing them in, phasing them out. And then you're adding in the right supplements to really help what we're doing dietary wise, and then different lifestyle habits. So you have to make sure that we're really tailoring it to those individual imbalances in the gut. Because if we're not going after the issues that's happening on a deeper level. And if you're wondering, well, like, how do I figure out what's happening? There's a couple of really great ways. Like if you're looking to get at like the true, like the types of bacteria, the types of yeast, the types of overgrowth happening in the gut, we love a GI map. That's going to be amazing. We have a number of our clients will choose to upgrade and add that on when they work with us. But again, Cris, like running an HTMA is so wonderful because we're going to be able to see those mineral imbalances that could be leading to issues with our gut. I'll let you dig into that because that's your wheelhouse.
Even malabsorption. So, I just started using this analogy is if I invite you and your family over to my house and I don't unlock the door and let you in, are you getting in? Are you, I can sit there and eat the cake in the window, but you can't have any. Right? So that's the concept of when we look at the malabsorption. You can have all these minerals in your body, but if they cannot be, I'm going to say shunted through enzymes, or they cannot be passed, or that catabolic state to break things down cannot occur, it doesn't matter who's at my door. If I don't open it, they're not getting in. So these nutrients, these minerals, if there's a barrier for them in the body, they cannot do anything inside the body. If we're not eating them, obviously, makes sense. But then we also have a cofactor when we have like calcium and sodium, or calcium and phosphorus, or even sodium and magnesium. All of these are like, hey, we could be struggling to digest proteins and fats, or you know what, maybe we're a little bit insulin resistant because our calcium and magnesium is so impaired. All of these cofactors work together. So what's the low-hanging fruit? How and why we always talk about gut health is you need to be able to, 1, digest, 2, assimilate, and 3, absorb, so your body can do the rest. And if you are in stress, if you have food sensitivities, if you're dehydrated, whatever it is, guess what? It's not going to happen.
And there's a few actionables, and we're going to talk generally about gut health. Because if you're like, okay, I'm not really eating that healthy, what can I start doing to love up my gut? Stick to as close as an anti-inflammatory diet as possible. We'll pop our blog for that in the show notes. And we even have our gut loving cheat sheet. So if you don't have that yet, again, go to the show notes, download it. It's for free. We give you some great gut loving tips there. And you could be including probiotic rich foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, because these are going to help support gut flora, fermented pickles, all these different wonderful things, unless you have a high histamine level. If you have issues with histamine, those are going to be off the table. You can be eating prebiotic things like garlic, onions, unripe bananas. These are going to help feed the beneficial bacteria in your gut. Of course, we know, avoiding the processed sugars, the refined carbohydrates, which are all the fun foods. I know, don't hate me. Because these are going to be feeding the gut bacteria. They love those sugary things. That's what they feed on. So really working with the anti-inflammatory food. And then also consider taking a probiotic. But here's the caveat with probiotics. We want to be making sure we're taking the right probiotic for your gut. So again, in the show notes, we're going to link back to a previous episode we did, I think in season 1, on how to pick a probiotic.
I get this all the time when I talk about onions and garlic and these types of things. If you're like, oh, I can't do that, I need low FODMAPs, or that gives me gas and bloat, or it really gives me heartburn, this may be an implication more towards your detoxification pathways than the gut itself. Of course, the gut is impaired, it's inflamed, these types of things. However, we also have to look at maybe we have further congestion And that's when we'd be looking at like sulfur and the HTMA. So just as we know, when they're like, I can't eat any of that and that, I get it. I can't do any of the sauerkraut and the kimchi and everything because I do have histamine for the rest of my life. Kind of, I feel like it's something I'm just going to have to do. Prebiotic fibers, right? Those are going to be in the oleosaccharide family. So fructooleosaccharide. Now they do the xyl oleosaccharides. Those can cause bloating. So if you're like taking a prebiotic in with your probiotic, you have to be careful. So we do have these wonderful resources. We have the blogs, we have the podcast, we have all of that. So just know as you're listening, when we say general, that's general, because in essence, these things should not cause that disruption. Fair? Because that just gives you another indication to say, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it wrong. There's something else. Let's keep digging.
Again, some other things to consider under the gut health umbrella, because remember, under this, pillar of gut health is also going to include things like hidden food sensitivities. Like I mentioned before, food sensitivities are not causing their acne, they're triggering it because they are a symptom, just like acne, of poor gut health. Because when you're dealing with leaky gut and you start, throwing all these different foods, and we can easily have food sensitivities start popping up because the undigested food particles enter in the bloodstream where they're not supposed to be. And the body's like, whoa, you're not supposed to be here. We're going to throw a red flag on the play because we can't be having this. And that's where you're going to be starting to get these sensitivities. And they could be triggering worsening of your skin, of your joint pain, headaches, like so many things can be coming from food sensitivities. So if you are someone who thinks they're dealing with food sensitivities, the biggest culprits are going to be dairy, gluten, corn, soy, and even refined sugar. I know so many people that have such a profound intolerance to sugar. These are going to be your big ones. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to eat? Go back to that blog that we have on the best diet for acne, because this is where you can start trying an elimination diet by, phasing these out for a minimum of 30 days and then slowly reintroduce them one at a time, separated by about 72 hours, and then making note of your physical, mental, and emotional symptoms, because food sensitivities can take about up to about 72 hours for their symptoms to appear. And another thing is, if you're still unsure, this is where you could be doing things like getting an IgG food sensitivity test. We generally don't start with an IgG for our clients in the Clear Skin solution because so many of them come in and they get them done and they light up like a Christmas tree, and then it gets overwhelming and they're like, oh my God, there's nothing that I can eat. So we really like to do some really great, work on digestion, gut microbiome rebalancing. And then maybe at like month 4 or 5 into your journey, that's when we would recommend, because you're going to be able to see like what's really going on. And then again, sticking to that very anti-inflammatory way of eating will be really helpful. And then Cris, what's another symptom of poor gut health that we kind of touched on already?
So again, those people that are doing all the right, and those people that just haven't been taught how to do the right, we're going to have nutritional deficiencies if we cannot get all the working parts in order. Your digestive tract runs from your mouth all the way down to your anus. So if you want a unicorn poo, you better be chewing your poo. That's how it happens, right? That tube is connected. So we know the skin loves itself some zinc. It loves omega-3s. It loves vitamin A. It loves vitamin D. I mean, those are just at the core foundation. However, we also need selenium. And
great little mineral. What a great underrated little mineral, right?
Right.
She's so underrated.
And also needed for vitamin E synthesis. Think about the wound healing even, right? And zinc is needed before A really can do its jam. And magnesium is needed before D can do it. So we know fat-soluble vitamins are fantastic for the skin. It gives its supple plump. It gets the hydration on top of the water. Now, what happens when you can't absorb them?
You don't get all the goodness of them.
How many clients come in taking zinc supplements?
Oh my goodness. I think zinc and DIM are like the number one supplements I see in a hormone balancing supplement. Those top 3 supplements we see clients coming and taking. They're like, no, I'm taking zinc, I'm taking DIM, and I'm taking this hormone balancing supplement. I'm
going to give kudos right now because this just brought it up as a reminder. There have been clients over the last, I would say 4 to 6 months coming into the Clear Skin solution. And you know what I'm seeing less of? DIM. And you know what they say? I've been
because they're listening to us.
And they're
yes, like, everybody. Yes.
Or they'll be like, Cris, or one of the coaches would be like, Cris, a client mentioned you. Yeah. Cris says I shouldn't take zinc, so I stopped that 2 months ago. I'm like, well, Cris didn't really say.
I love that you guys are listening. That makes me feel so warm and fuzzy.
They are. And the people coming in are of such quality mindset too. Not that they, they're like, oh, it's not the quality mindset to go, I realize now what I haven't been doing is not my fault. I just hear those words and I'm like, exactly. So kudos to everybody listening and applying, because you can get some good loving that way. So yeah, for sure. We can take a zinc supplement, or you know what I love? I love zinc rich foods, pumpkin seeds, yes, chia seeds, lentils.
I always prefer, if you are dealing with nutrient deficiencies, I really like to do a food first approach, because I want you to be chewing really well. And if you go to our gut living cheat sheet, you're going to see we recommend a digestive enzyme because that's going to help you break your food down. You're going to better absorb it as well. So those zinc rich foods like your pumpkin seeds, we can be putting that. You can eating it a handful, adding it to your yogurt, putting it on vegetables, chickpeas, lentils, so many zinc rich foods.
And those are the higher ones. I mean, zinc is really found in even trace, like almost in many, like most, I want to say. So if we want to include omega rich foods, that's back to those fatty fish. So the salmon, that mackerel, the anchovies, the little tiny little nuggets, so we're not getting the heavy metals. We could even do chia seeds, flax seeds. Those are going to start to support the reduction of inflammation, especially the PG2 series. So I just got a new book for the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. I have to forward it first. Because
for anyone that doesn't know, Cris teaches at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition.
Oh, yeah. So I got a new book.
If you couldn't tell.
I couldn't tell. I might have a little tinge of that.
If you couldn't tell.
And they give me a new book and everything. And what I really loved in there, and it was neat, even from the time that they published that to now, it's not even probably as accurate. However, it used to, we need omega-6s 2 times the amount to omega-3s. But everyone boasts about omega-3 because everything we eat is saturated in omega-6s. So it's pro-inflammatory. And now our society is eating 20 to 1, 20 omega-6s to 1. You know what that is? That is a walking inferno.
It's inflammation city right there is what that is.
Yes. So we have lots of things. You can go outside 10, 15 minutes. Don't do it between 10 and 2. Why? Yucky. UV. These
for your vitamin D.
Yeah, you got to get that vitamin D in. We got to get some good loving. We want to eat magnesium foods to help vitamin D. Vitamin A, go eat anything orange, carrots, sweet potatoes, right? The liver loves to support that through that vitamin A for skin regeneration. And then the last one, like I was saying, vitamin E, sunflower seeds, avocado, right? We want to take away the oxidative stress, so all the ugly that's building out. So as we're getting all that oxidation and that inflammation, we need something to combat it. And hello, vitamin A. Please just don't run out and buy ACEs plus zinc, because it's the antioxidant, because you have to make sure you can emulsify those. We
do love an ACEs and zinc when used in the right time frame and in the right situation. Yep. Okay. So that's a lot on gut health, right?
Yeah,
that's a big piece. Yep. So pillar number 2 here at the Clear Skin Solution is going to be detoxification. And it's more than just your liver, because your liver gets all the spotlight because he is the main organ for detoxification. Over 600 functions in the body, as Cris likes to correct me all the time because it's just stuck in my brain at 500. The liver does a lot of things in the body, but it's not the only organ for detoxification. We also have to remember our kidneys are part of our detox system, our lymphatic system as well, which is my favorite system to talk about, our lungs, of course, our colon, which is where we're excreting our bowel movements, and also our skin. So if these pathways, especially if our liver, our kidneys, and our lymphatic system and our colon are really sluggish, they're stagnant, they're overburdened, toxins can start coming through your skin because, again, the body's like, oh man, we can't get this out. We're going to have to send the backlog over to the skin because it's got to get out some way. And then it sends that to your skin, which gets inflamed. And then voila, we're dealing with breakouts contributing to acne. So this is why we really need to be looking at what is the health of our detoxification system. And the first area we have to look at isn't going to be the liver. It's going to be your colon, because we can't go and start flushing your liver if there's nowhere for it to send. Sure, it can be sending some to the kidneys, but if there's nowhere for it to send to the colon, into your bowel movements, into your poop, it's just going to sit in your colon. And if it sits there too long, it starts to reabsorb back into the body, goes into bloodstream, heads back to the liver, overwhelms the liver. And we just keep overwhelming and burdening our detoxification system. So we have to be starting as, are you having healthy poops every single day? And we have an entire podcast on having a healthy poop. So we're going to link that to the show notes as well. So you can go back and listen to that. But some other things we can doing is, once we're getting those healthy poops in place, is let's really start loving up our liver with foods like the cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and kale and cabbage. And if you're not digesting those well, let's start cooking them because they're going to be easier to digest, having those enzymes in place, because these have some really incredible sulfur mineral. And this is going to be helping to support our detoxification pathway. We can be having, of course, we know some lemon water, garlic, turmeric. There's so many different things that are going to be loving up your liver. So I'm going to make sure we include the blog on some of our favorite liver loving foods. And you can even be adding in things like liver supporting teas. So we really love traditional medicinals everyday detox. It's actually Paige's favorite tea. She has it every day. She travels with the tea everywhere. That can be some really great ways to be supporting your liver. Of course, like we said, your liver needs hydration. Your liver also needs protein. Let's just talk about that for a hot minute, because the number one macronutrient that we see our clients coming in most deficient in is protein. You're straight up just not eating enough protein in the day. And I'm also going to put myself in that category. That's one thing that I probably also can slip on sometimes. So just being more aware of how much protein you're getting in your day, making sure you're having some, each meal, maybe as your snacks. And some examples of proteins, if you're not sure, would be, there's your animal proteins, like your chicken, your turkey, your fish, your grass-fed beef, your wild game, your eggs, pasture-raised eggs. And then on the other side, you can be looking at the plant versions. That's going to be your lentils, legumes, chickpeas. We're going to be seeing that nuts and seeds and quinoa. So making sure we're getting a lot of this in the day to be supporting our liver. We can also be loving up our lymphatic system. Again, let's put the lymphatic blog in there. We have so many resources today, you guys. Like, it's going to be, it's just going to be a list of resources. Dry brushing can be really great for helping your lymphatic system, because remember, your lymphatic system relies on manual stimulation. So like through massage, or dry brushing or movement. So physically moving your muscles is going to be loving up your lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system is basically your body's garbage disposal system. So it's collecting all of the toxins and bacteria, and then it's help flushing them from the body. And we actually did an entire detox series, a 3-part series in season 2 on in the podcast as well. So let's link that in. If you do red light, so your infrared saunas can be great, your Epsom salt baths. We already talked about the dandelion root or milk thistle teas. Those are supporting kidney and liver function. And then, like we said, the daily movement, walking, yoga, weightlifting, Pilates, which is my personal fave. Any way that we're getting a little bit of movement in the day.
Okay, so then we're going to talk about toxins and the overload or the burden. If we want to look at like environmental exposures, so many clients say, well, I have allergies. Okay, well, tell me about them. Okay, you have the sniffles, you're having an immune or non-immune reaction, these types of things. So what is environmental toxin? It's anything from skincare, right? That makeup, you walk outside, it's pollution, household cleaners, products, toothbrush, everything. Even sometimes the bristles of your toothbrush can be just laden with plastic, right? No, at least that's a cheap switchover. So when we're looking to switch to cleaning non-toxic products, it's going to be essential, right? However, we have to be able to, one, look at detoxifying our environment. And that's when you come into Clear Skin Solution, this is what we do. We start to isolate where the load of the toxicity. Are you eating a high burden of mercury fish? Do you have well water? Do you have hard water? Are you using a water softener? Do you wear an Apple Watch to bed? Are you around batteries all day? Like all of these different things.
Chris, you're sending people down a rabbit hole. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah, they can go search. It's okay. It's good. It's good for them because this is awareness, right? Now, it's not to freak you out. It's really that gives you opportunity to look at non-toxic. Right? Everybody knows I am really big on, maybe not everybody knows, but I'm really big on EMFs or not trying to be exposed. So I have specific things on my computers, right? That's how I try and limit my lithium or my battery or my EMFs. So what do there's different things we can do. Skincare. I use the cleanest skincare, I just have to say. So I don't mind putting it on my face. So I'm not getting the harmful chemicals and fragrances. I have a reverse osmosis, right? So even a water filter at some level that fits within your budget is going to do better than nothing, that tap water, because heavy metals, chlorine, even good minerals like manganese, which are typical to well or hard water, they're not really typical to city water. Minerals are great, but not, again, if I don't let them in or they're overabundance. And now I have a house party when I just invited Katie's family over.
Oh,
right?
You don't want to invite, that's a whole situation right there.
Apparently I can't invite the whole family. So we could look at indoor quality, air purifiers, or really just replacing the furnace filter a little bit more often. What I love is, for all of the listeners, is we know the Environmental Working Group, so EWG, they have a skin deep database. They have other databases. They have other databases as well, where you can start to see where your personal care products are clean, if there's potential toxins, all of these little things, right? There's even an app that you can use. And
Think Dirty.
Yeah. And Yuka, I've just started using that one because, of course, my husband found it on the internet, and everything he finds on the internet's true. What does his wife know? So I've been using it to see the quality of the information it's come. So I don't know yet, everybody. If you do go and download that one, it's cutesy. It's easy to use. It doesn't do any supplements, so don't even try it. So, I mean, we could have, if we have all of these toxins, it just puts a burden. You expect your liver to perform, but there's internal fire going over on here. Aisle 4, the cereal boxes just fell over. Where do you go to first? Your body's going to go to the life form first. It needs a circulation, right? It needs the heart pumping, these things. Everything else, even like your sex hormones, are going to go down the tank, right? So whether we have the underlying infections or anything, those two are going to kind of cause systemic inflammation, which is then can build up a toxin overload, because that's what viruses and bacteria can do when not in line.
Let's go into hormonal balance, because this is, again, probably acne sufferers, again, another one of their favorite topics. I can't count how many people are like, no, I have hormonal acne. It's just my hormones. I'm like, okay, sure, but it's not. Let's just break that myth for you right now. Maybe not. Are hormones at play? Possibly. Most likely, but we have to remember in that acne, let's talk about the acne clearing house. Okay. Let's think of a house. When you're building a house, what do you do first? You have to put a foundation. Then the foundation, we're going to be putting those walls on. Once the walls are in, that's when we can be putting the roof on. You have to go in that order, because if you try to put the roof on before the foundation, it's just not going to happen. So let's look at this from an acne perspective. The foundation is going to be your gut. That's what we got to be getting at. We got to get digestion. We got to be pooping well. We got to be, working on our leaky gut and our overgrowth. Then once we're starting to get those bowel movements in place, that's when we can be putting those walls on, which is your detoxification, because now your detoxification system has a place to send everything. It can be getting out. Then once the detoxification systems are working well, that's when we're going to be putting on the roof, which is your hormones. Your hormones rely on the health of your gut in your detoxification system, because your gut is actually responsible for regulating and manufacturing a lot of your hormones. So if we're just focused on our hormones, but we do nothing for our gut health, we're missing such a big piece of the puzzle. And this is why so many women fail balancing their hormones, because they do not look at the health of their gut and their liver. Because then when we move into your detoxification, guess what? Your liver and your kidneys are helping to filter and excrete excess hormones from the body. So if they're not working well and you're just trying to do hormone balancing, again, we're going to be failing at this. So first and foremost, let's look at your gut. Let's look at your detox systems. And then we need to be looking at our hormones. And so many times, Cris, is how often do we have those clients coming and saying, nope, it's my hormones. And then we do all of our gut work, all of our detox work. And then they're like, oh, my hormones just went and balanced themselves because they had the resources to do so. And they didn't even have to do a hormone balancing protocol.
Yeah, less than 5% would have a true androgen dominant or a 5-ADHT pathway.
Mm-hmm. Estrogen dominance, low progesterone.
Right. Now, people can still have estrogen dominance. The great thing is when you go into the gut and you do the estrobolome and you allow it to detoxify or push out itself or metabolize is kind of the word I'm looking for. Then the body can start to try and get rid of it itself. Sometimes we might need a little bit of enhancement here or there, However, it's not like androgen dominance. Like, I will give it to you. If you're androgen dominance, yeah, your acne, your androgen,
yeah, it's got something to do. Yeah, going
hands
on.
in hands. And now instead of when people come in and they're like, "Oh, it's my hormones," I say, "Absolutely. Which ones?"
I'm like, I don't know.
And they're like, "Well, I think I definitely, like it's estrogen." And I'm like, "Okay, tell me more about it." And I said, "Okay, so what does that do with cortisol? Because you mentioned that your stress response is 7, so that's like pretty high. Like you're stressed out all day." And they're like, I said, "So what's the connections between cholesterol and estrogen?" They're like, so I said, "So I'll give it to you, hormones, because cortisol is a hormone. It's a stress hormone. Adrenaline that is interconnected with testosterone is a stress hormone. So once we know which hormone, then we'd be able to pinpoint it, put the blinders on, and go after it. However, why would we ever not allow the body a chance to self-heal first?
The body's
right?
a pretty impressive thing when you give it the tools that it needs. It's very smart, right? We're not going to outsmart the body, unfortunately. But when we're looking at the hormones, there's so many things we can be doing lifestyle wise that are free to do that are going to be loving up your hormones, right? So we can be doing things like sleep, because guess what? Your hormones love when you sleep, because if you're burning the candle at both ends, that's going to be impacting your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. It's going to be impacting your insulin. So that's going to be impacting your blood sugar. So this is where lifestyle factors. So sleep is going to be a really big one. Stress reduction is going to be a huge one. We all know it. I'm pretty sure Cris and I talk about stress reduction every single podcast that we've ever done. Find something that helps you reduce stress, because what works for me or works for Cris may not work for you. So whether that's breath work, meditation, grounding, getting in nature, tapping, there's so many different things. Listening to your favorite song, dancing, doing something that brings you joy, going to yoga, like whatever helps reduce your stress, just do it. Just do it. It doesn't have to be crazy. 5 minutes. You could be doing deep breathing while you're stuck in traffic, which I think is probably the best time to be doing it, because you want to be reducing that stress when you're stuck in traffic. This is where you can also be helping to manage your blood sugar, because remember, insulin is a hormone. So we want to be loving up our blood sugar by not skipping meals. And I just want to put it out there. Coffee is not a meal. Okay. Coffee is not a meal. It isn't. It's not going to love up your blood sugar when you're having that first thing in the morning.
To be drank with meal.
You can have it with your meal, but don't have it as a meal.
Fact.
So we want to be managing our blood sugar by eating balanced meals with our protein, fiber, and healthy fats. It's going in the show notes. Don't worry. And eating consistent meals throughout the day. So not letting ourselves get hangry. Nobody wants to be hangry. My husband especially doesn't like when I'm hangry. I turn into a different human. I think any of us can relate to that. And this is where we can also be reducing our exposure to hormone disrupting chemicals. So this is where we want to be reading our personal care products, our makeup, our skincare, the cleaning products. We actually have an entire podcast and blog on that. We'll link in the show notes. And, because when we're slathering hormone disrupting chemicals on, we are cleaning our house with them. We're breathing them in from spritzing them everywhere. We are packing our food in conventional plastic. We're heating our food in conventional plastic. We're drinking water out of plastic. All of these things are going to be getting into our body.
Wearing plastic.
Wearing plastic, and can be mimicking hormones in our body, which we don't want to be doing. So this is where we love using clean beauty products. And we're actually going to link to our shop page, because what I've done is over the years is I've made partnerships with all of these really great companies that don't use hormone disrupting ingredients in their personal care and in their cleaning products. And I'm extremely selective with the brands that I do choose to partner with. I say no to about probably 96% of brands that approach us, because I want to make sure that they're in alignment with what we do here at KSW and the Clear Skin Solution. This is where, we can also be practicing seed cycling. We have a great blog on seed cycling where we can be having specific seeds during the different phases of our cycle to be supporting hormone production. And then we can be, helping to love up our hormones with foods that it loves. So your hormones need fats for production. So this is where having things like those omega-3s, the flax seeds, the walnuts, getting some avocados, some extra virgin olive oil, all of these things are really going to be loving up our hormones as well. And Cris, why don't you talk about testing that we can be doing for our hormones, whether it's blood tests or a Dutch test?
I do adore blood labs for hormones, like sex hormones, for insulin factor, for glucose, like these types of things. However, what we want to do is most often it's just not tested quite on the right day. So where the labs are definitely a viable source, it has to be, if we're going to isolate just one look at estrogen, we're going to do that on day 3 of a monthly cycle, where day 1 being your actual bleed, so not including spotting. If we want to do all the hormones, so the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone, the androgen, DHEA, all of this, day 19 to 21, and before 10 a.m., because that's when they all like do their thing and they jam, right? So we can definitely get in there. You could also do a hormone panel test, which we do offer, and some clients do elect that as an extra service. Again, we don't love to start with additional functional tests when you're coming in, because we like to evaluate where you are. Where's the inflammation? Where are the environmental triggers? Katie, I'm going to add to your house here for a second. You know how you're like, we start the house with the foundation. So really, let's up level. Let's go. We really start with obviously collecting the information, getting the surveys and getting the permits. Then we dig. So that digging is now we're assessing the things like where the wires are, where we can't dig, is there hydro? And then we create the hole for the foundation. So that's where we can start removing those environmental factors. So we even have a chance when, say you're working with us or we're working with clients, we have a chance to start getting in way before the house has to start the production. So that's called prep, right?
A little bit of prep goes a long way.
I mean, you touched on chronic stress, and we all know,
and I like to put obviously chronic stress under the hormone umbrella, because cortisol is a hormone, and
it kind of can go under all of them.
Yeah, to be honest, because it like chronic stress is obvious. Yeah, let's kind of like lead into how many areas this impacts the pillar. We house it under hormones because cortisol is a hormone. However, chronic stress is going to be impacting your gut, because we have to remember about that gut brain skin axis, where the health of each other is going to be impacting, where your stress is going to be impacting the status of your microbiome. It can be impacting the integrity of your gut lining, and then vice versa. What's happening in your gut is going to be impacting your brain. So, and then when we're looking at chronic stress, it's also going to be when we're in this state of fight or flight constantly, that's going to be shutting down our digestive process, because we're supposed to be running from a saber-toothed tiger, but the body doesn't realize the saber-toothed tiger is just the argument you got in with your boss this morning. And when we're stuck in that chronic state of fight or flight, we aren't able to digest, because the body's like, oh, I don't need to be digesting, I need to be running. And that's where we're not producing enough hydrochloric acid. So if we're not producing enough hydrochloric acid, we're not breaking our food down. And if we're not breaking our food down, we're feeding that overgrowth. And then if we're looking at our chronic stress, that's going to be impacting our detoxification system. It's really impacting so many areas, yet we overlook it because it's like, oh no, like that's simple. I don't want to do it. I'm too busy. I don't have time. You need to make the time. Like, I'm just going to say, you need to make the time.
Yeah, either that or you will be forced to make the time. Right. And that's not going to be fun. So you nailed it, like doing a mindful practice, getting some sleep, right? Reducing any kind of caffeine or anything that spikes, right? Get a new job if you have to. Don't be a teacher, because I don't know how you manage that many little beings. And the thing is not just that, but there's a mental overload that builds up this stress, and getting really into that mindset. So mindset is a core pillar for sure because of this. Outside of that, definitely you want to add some adaptogenic herbs, holy basil, rhodiola. They seem to be a little bit innocent. It depends, because some stimulate and some calm. Many people use ashwagandha. It's not my favorite, actually. So because there's indications around stress and cortisol that may not be complementary, depending on where you're holding your cortisol levels. So not a fan. However, I mean, if we haven't nailed stress and mindset in almost every single podcast, you pick your poison, you listen to it again. We're going to nail into that, because I don't want to overshadow the fact that there are a couple other factors we definitely want to get into today while you're donating your time with us. But just know that how you start a stress reduction is, first of all, becoming mindful to it. We are so go, go, go. You don't even know your stressors. So if you're waking up through the night, it's going to be a stressor. right? If you're sniffing and sneezing and itching and stuff like that after food, there's a stressor, right? If we have maybe well water or water softener or Teflon pans, perhaps we have a stressor. So as you're starting to evaluate getting those plans and getting the permits for your building, you can make small progressions. And that's going to be the big one right now for why isn't it working? Because really, there's so many factors. You're going to drive yourself nuts and you're not going to love the budget bill.
Remember, your chronic stress also goes into our fourth acne clearing pillar, which is emotional well-being. This is such an overlooked pillar because it's easy to focus on the gut, the liver, the hormones, all of those fun, cool things. The emotional well-being isn't fun. Nobody wants to look at their own emotional well-being because we prefer to just like hide our traumas and our stressors in some dark corner of our soul and be like, no, no, that's not fun. I don't want to open that can of worms. Thank you very much.
Or we don't even want to burden people with it, right? We feel like it's our burden and we need to deal with. We don't want to be like negative Nancy.
We have to remember that emotional traumas, especially that have happened to us as childhood, teens, adults, any of those big emotional traumas that happen to us, that they get stored in the body. This is an area of science that is really starting to emerge in the last few years, is how we store emotional traumas in our body, and they start to create dis-ease in the body. And we have had a number of clients who've had some really deep emotional traumas. You know, when they finally start to share, well, not that they have to share it with us, but when they have shared that they just decided they're going to start working through these traumas, they're talking to somebody, they're dealing with it, they're unpacking it. They have such a profound shift in their skin that we've seen actual borderline miracles happen. And it just goes to show the power of releasing these emotions that we hold on to. So please don't overskip the importance of working through that as well.
I can't even stress that enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're just that this is a gold star on both sides. This is the unicorn poop. This is the everything. This is the money maker. Mm-hmm. This is where, like, when I hold my weekly calls, where do I spend a lot of my time?
Mindset.
Right here, right?
Mindset.
So when we're looking at an imbalanced skin microbiome, right? So we've done all the things. What if the skin microbiome just is like, nah, I'm not dealing with it. We have different cultures. We have an imbalance between that good and the bad bacteria because the skin holds bacteria. We're more bacteria than we are DNA. So even the healthiest of foods aren't going to shift this right away. Remember, your body's a vessel. Just like you, when you meet somebody, you're going to, do I trust them? Do I like them? Are they funny? And we make all those judgment-like references pretty quick. Your body, after years of repetitive insults or damages or triggers because you didn't know what you were looking for, your body's a little cautious as well. So it needs time. We need to work on the absorption and the digestion while calming, while taking externals out, while not overwhelming you, creating more of that chronic stress right?
And then that last pillar that we want to look at is going to be our skincare, right? And we have a lot of people being like, okay, Katie, well, while I'm working on my root causes, like, do I still do my skincare? Absolutely. I love a good skincare routine. We all know that. And it's one of the 5 pillars because we have to be working internally and topically because so many acne sufferers have destroyed their skin barrier, destroyed their skin microbiome, because they have been overusing skincare products. They've been using dry ingredients like benzoyl peroxides and topical medications and overusing acids and going with the more is more approach because they're like, oh, I just need to strip my skin of everything. They're drying it out. They're not keeping it hydrated. So, they're using, like toxin filled dirty products unknowingly. Again, I'm saying unknowingly because things like fragrance can be irritating the skin. The alcohols in the products can be irritating the skin. So we really want to be looking out for what are we slathering on our face and really taking that less is more approach. So when it comes to, our skin, we have a really great podcast episode on the skin microbiome from last season that we'll link in the show notes. But we want to be loving up the skin microbiome because if we have this imbalance of good and bad bacteria on our skin, this can also be leading to acne, a worsening of our skin. Because even with the healthiest diet, if we have an imbalance of microbiome on our skin, that's also going to be flaring and going to be making it irritated and red and inflamed. So we want to be using that gentle, pH balance cleanser. We're not stripping our skin of the natural oils, incorporating some probiotic rich skincare to restore balance to the skin microbiome, not over exfoliating. So maybe we're only exfoliating 1 or 2 times a week. Maybe instead of using a physical exfoliant with the scrubbies in it, which is going to be irritating acneic skin, let's use, this is where the chemical exfoliants like an acid is going to be coming into play. We have a podcast on acids that we're going to link. Really opt to include some oil cleansing. So doing a double cleanse with an oil cleanse and then a water-based chemicals, and then completely avoiding the benzoyl peroxides at all costs. And not overdoing with the salicylic acid. These can be some really great things. So if you are overdoing it, let's try paring it down to a cleanser, a serum, and a moisturizer, because we want to be cleansing the skin, we want to be treating it, and then we want to be hydrating the skin. If you are somebody that is looking at products specific for microbiome, you can be looking at Symbiome. That's one of Chris's favorite skincare brands. And then if you're looking at barrier, like specific skin barrier repair, we have a blog on it. But we really love 3 Ships. That's a brand that our esthetician Ashley recommends a lot to our acne clients. And they specifically have their blueberry repair serum with ceramides, which is going to be really great for repairing the skin barrier as well. We hit an hour. So that's an hour's worth of reasons why healthy eating alone isn't going to clear up your skin. I think, is that enough reasons?
We didn't even touch supplements. Did everybody see that?
Didn't even touch them.
We could. We wanted food, but you see, supplements weren't on there. Everyone, okay. So these are the foundations first.
Yeah, and you want to know if this is something where like, okay, I didn't realize all of the facets and all of the additional things that had to be going on. Remember, if you need help with this, we are always here in the Clear Skin Solution for whenever you're ready to take that next step and start digging into those reasons why you're healthy eating isn't clearing up your skin, where we can be utilizing functional testing, we can be getting down, we can be creating those more therapeutic protocols tailored to all of these things. Because like we said, this is a very complex, very multifaceted, and it can be really difficult to go at it alone. And it can also be very difficult to stay focused. All right. Well, I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. We will see you next week with another episode of the Clear Skin Chronicles.